Could the Sony FX30 actually be a better camera than the Red Komodo? Well, I think it's closer than you think. Let's find out. For those of you that are new around here, my name is Riley, and I'm a filmmaker who's produced documentaries on multiple continents around the world using the gear that I talk about on this channel. So if you're someone that's into documentaries or making films with small crews, then you're in the right place. Consider subscribing and following along. All right, back to the video. The FX30 is a $1,600 entry-level cinema camera from Sony, while the Red Komodo cost me nearly $10,000 to even be able to hit record, and that's a pretty tight budget for a Red. The Komodo has been used from everything from Transformers, The Matrix, and dozens of other high-budget blockbuster films. So you're probably asking yourself, are these two cameras even in the same league? And why is this guy even making a video about it? Well, I've been using the FX30 for a little over a year now, and I've had my Red Komodo for about 6 months. And let me tell you that what I've found in terms of how close these two cameras are has really surprised me, and in a lot of ways, the FX30 might even be a better camera. Let me explain. The point of this video is not to inspire some sort of gear acquisition syndrome or to encourage a bunch of fights in the comment section below, although those are kind of funny from time to time. The point of this video is to really look at these two cameras and explain that it's not necessarily the specific camera that you choose, but it's how you use it that's going to be able to tell the best story. And I think that from using both of these cameras for an extended period of time has really taught me that even though these two cameras are in different worlds in terms of their price points, they're actually pretty close, and it's actually pretty exciting for us as filmmakers. Both of these cameras actually share a decent amount of similarities. They both have 6K Super 35 sensors, they both have the ability to record RAW, and they have an ability to record ProRes or a ProRes equivalent codec internally. And despite the fact that the Red Komodo's brain costs nearly 4 times as much as the body of the FX30, and by brain, I just mean the box that you need to spend additional money for a battery plate and a battery and a memory card and a monitor and this side handle and any sort of like attachment cheese plates on the side. The brain itself costs about 4 times as much as the FX30. This camera probably only has about a stop or two of dynamic range of like an advantage compared to the FX30. So in a lot of ways, both of these cameras are pretty similar. After I bought the Komodo, I actually debated selling my FX30 and using the extra cash to buy some more Red accessories. But honestly, after I started using them together and noticing the similarities, I decided not to do that because I think that these cameras actually make a really good A-B pairing and even in some ways complement each other. Now, if you're someone who owns an FX30 and you feel a slight bit of imposter syndrome because you don't own a Red or you don't own an FX3, let me tell you, you don't need to feel like that, and that's our consumeristic culture speaking. The FX30 is a great camera, and when you consider the autofocus performance, the great battery life, and the fact that the top handle has built-in XLR inputs that make shooting in a run and gun environment a breeze, you definitely don't need to feel like that. With the similarities out of the way, I want to talk about some of the major differences. The FX30 is going to far outshine the Red Komodo when it comes to frame rates. It can record at 4K 60 frames per second, and it can even do a 4K 120 mode, although there is a crop on the sensor. But the Red Komodo gives us kind of a measly 40 frames per second in the full width and resolution of the 6K sensor. You have to crop into 5K to do 50 frames per second, and then crop in on a 4K windowing of the sensor to get 60 frames per second, and crop even further to get 120 frames per second. And the crop on that is so bad, I do not record in that mode on the Komodo ever. But the FX30 doesn't give us the option to record the 6K resolution on its sensor. It downsamples everything to 4K, and even when you record in RAW, you don't get the option to record that full 6K resolution. It's going to give you a 4.7K windowing of the sensor and max out that resolution just below 5K. The FX30's amazing 10-bit color and codec is going to get far overshadowed by the Komodo's 16-bit color with its amazing Red Code RAW. In my opinion, Red Code RAW is the best and most flexible codec that you can work with today. And as well, the Red Komodo has this amazing little cube form factor that I think probably makes it one of the most modular cameras on the market and has a pretty awesome global shutter. For these reasons, I've opted to use it as my primary documentary camera because the modularity and the horsepower combination of this camera makes it something special. I can rig it up in any scenario that I need and that a production calls for, and it also has kind of the horsepower and overhead to fit in alongside some of the Hollywood films that I mentioned before. And so that kind of unique combination has made it really appealing for me and the work that I'm doing with it. Having used these two cameras side by side for a little while now, it's helped me realize a few things. One of them is that these cameras complement each other really well. The FX30 has strengths in audio and frame rates, where the Red Komodo I think excels in just pure image quality and the modularity of the way the camera is designed. And as well, these cameras can actually share lenses and the sensor sizes complement each other. Because they're both around a Super 35 size sensor, it means that I can adapt EF glass and even PL glass to both of these cameras, and despite the fact that they have different mounts, the FX30 having Sony E mount and the Red Komodo having Canon's RF mount, I'm able to share glass between the cameras, and the focal lengths and crop factors are going to be pretty similar between the two. The other thing that owning both of these cameras has helped me to realize is that obsessing over gear is really only going to slow us down. Both of these cameras are great and can honestly do most jobs. And having both of these cameras is a huge blessing and a privilege. And really the only thing that it does for me is kind of create some more options and some more flexibilities when it comes to the way that I approach projects. It doesn't make me a better filmmaker in any way. It just gives me a couple more options. A common theme that I keep coming back to on this channel is that it really is a good time to be a filmmaker because modern cameras these days are all so incredibly good. What differentiates cameras is not image quality anymore, and it's more and more about the ergonomics and how these cameras are designed to be used on set. And I think that that means that it really is shifting the emphasis back to telling stories and having the right tool to tell your story. So at the end of the day, don't let the gear acquisition syndrome stop you from telling the story that you're meant to tell. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next one.